This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Gunners Rust Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal. And that we are. And we used to say this was positively international. Or interlull break, or positively something, but I would say this is the first time I'm going to say this. Maybe it's not positively international. I think we could probably all agree with that anyway, but all our fears are coming true. So today we're going to unpack, is it an injury crisis or is it smart play from the club? Is it a bit of both? I don't know. We'll also get into the idea that this is brand new and no team's ever done this before, and Arsenal are the first team and they shouldn't do it, and it's turning your back on your countries and blah, 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 blah. We're going to get into all that today. That's pretty much all we can kind of overly get into today, because on Wednesday we're going to get back in the studio, Joe and I, and we'll start getting ready for this downhill slope to the end of the season. Because once we are back, it is FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League, Champions League, Man City game. And beyond that point, potentially there is a semi-final in Champions League and FA Cup to fit in around another 5 Premier League games after that. And there is no more breaks. This is right through to the end. So this is the moment we've been waiting for all season. This is what we've been working towards. And we will find out very soon whether... what's the word? Whether the season was what we wanted it to be. And again, we'll kind of talk a bit more about that today, because I'll leave Wednesday open for Joe and I to go at it for what's going to happen the remainder, get ready for the Southampton game, blah, blah, blah. And over on Patreon, there'll be a deep dive into Southampton, that preview at the end of the week. So make sure you subscribe to that Patreon. Link below means you get it for a better price than if you go through the app. But do it now and then download the app if you want to listen to it. But sign up via the link. So today, here we go. We need to talk about the injuries and the internationals. So I think if we start this in kind of order in which things are starting to happen and who we're going to talk about, the Carabao Cup gave us a lot of nerves right before, because we heard the news that Eze was injured and we didn't know if it was a lingering kind of injury from that game we had against Leverkusen, where he kind of went on that mazy run, didn't make a pass, tried to get the shot away, and I think he kind of almost kicked the ground. It felt like, jarred his leg, and he kind of asked to come off, and we were under the impression that was one of those moments where you kind of, shank a ball and you go, yeah, the old hammy's gone. Do you know what I mean? Like we didn't know if it was like an embarrassment kind of feeling he was going for, or if it was timed, because there was a treble change. It turned into a quad change. And I don't think Arteta does quad changes, so I don't think it was timed, but I wonder if he also was told, like, if you feel anything, or if you're starting to get tired around the 60, 70 mark, could you come off because we need you for the Carabao Cup final. I don't know if that was the deal. When he made that mazy run, it knackered him out because he ran the length of the field, and he thought, you know what, yeah, I'm up. I've ran my race, so I'll get ready for the final. We kind of assumed it was all that. Then he did interviews with Jamie Redknapp. We all got confused because he was very excited about the final, which was done after that match. And you did kind of think, well, why would he do that interview and kind of be talking about how excited he is? And he's like smiling, like legitimately seemed happy. And then he wasn't able to play, and you could see him in the crowd even before the game. He's just kind of looked livid because he was just sad that he was missing it. So it was kind of confusing, because we thought, is this maybe a new injury? We haven't got clarification if this was the remnants of the injury against Leverkusen, or whether it's maybe something that was picked up in training, or a muscle injury or something. We still don't know. But either way, he was pulled from internationals with the Carabao Cup final. We knew prior that Tuchel had said that Rice and Saka were going to give him the week off, and they were going to join up the team on the Friday night to watch the game and then start training Saturday to get ready for Tuesday before coming back to their club. We appreciate that, and I think that's like the way we're going with internationals. I think this is what they're going to have to do, especially at this point in the season when, we saw the video of Declan Rice coming down the stairs internally in Wembley, and I mean, he can hardly walk, and he's got this mad downhill run right now. He's got 7 games left in the league. He's potentially got another 5 in the Champions League if we go to the final. He's got another potentially 3 in the FA Cup. So that's 8 plus 7. It's 15 more games he's got to play. And as soon as it finishes, he is joining up with England. He's doing a friendly, and then he's going to America, doing another friendly, then doing 3 group games, and potentially a couple more. He's not going to be back until late July. The season next year starts second week of August. He's then going to go away for 2 weeks. He's going to miss the start next season. He's then going to have to get into shape in a preseason manner, but during the season, as if he goes to like the final, let's say. But even if he makes it to the quarters, we're going to have so many players that won't be able to start next season, and that's normal. But you just think of someone like Declan Rice who hasn't had, touch wood, a major injury yet, that something's going to go kaput at some point, because I mean he can hardly walk after games and stuff. And then maybe this is something that, you know, if you spent time in locker rooms or blah blah blah, like with football, maybe everyone's a bit like that. You know what I mean? Like especially box to box midfielders. Maybe everyone's a little bit, you know, stiff, rightly so, after 90 minutes against a top team like Man City, and having to do all those steps to Wembley to go get runners up is kind of insult to injury. But maybe that's just normal, and you know that recovery that they do over the next couple of days is what kind of gets them back, and maybe that isn't like long term or something that, you know, could go kaput. Maybe it is just that's how football does to the body, you know, like people do struggle to walk after football because it is a taxing thing on the body. So I don't know, but either way, it just feels like he's playing a lot of games, you know. And I know last summer he would have had rest, and then he's had another hard season, going strong in all 4 comps. Obviously, we lost the Carabao Cup final, but we made it to the end of it. He could play up to, I think we're at game 51 now, right? So that'll be 65 games if we go to distance and everything. And Rice would have played in, dare I say, 60 if he stays fit. Then he's a main man for England. And like I said, straight back into another season where we're going to be expected to fight on all 4 fronts. Don't think it's possible. I think post-World Cup you usually get some weird seasons where maybe teams that didn't send a lot of people away, or maybe teams that their internationals all came back early, or whatever it is. And actually, the one team that I'm looking at is United, because I think they're going to move away from Bruno Fernandes. Just naturally. I think he's very good. I think he should stay for their, you know, benefit. But I wonder if they're going to move away from him naturally. When I look at their team and you think they're doing so well with like Mbeumo and Sesko, even who's in that midfield at the minute? Mainu, who probably isn't going to play a lot of minutes for England if he goes. Maguire will for England if they go to distance. Cunha, Brazil could go distance. But when I look at their squad, I don't know why, but I think, do you know what? I wonder if they're going to be in very good shape to start next season. So my early bold prediction is Man United to have a heavy lead at the top of the league by Christmas. That's my gauge. I don't know if they'll win the league, but I think they're the team that could capitalise. Chelsea have got players from everywhere. They're going to struggle, and I don't think they've really found their man as far as a manager. I don't think they found their style. Arsenal, I think, having, you know, when you remember when Liverpool went the distance in all 4 comps, they had a horrible season the following year because you just put so much effort in and their bodies are broken down. Certain players never recover from it. So this is that season, and that is also what adds the pressure to having to win something, because if you come away with nothing, it was like sacrifice for nothing. Like some players will never be the same. So I don't expect much out of us next year, especially with the World Cup year. But you could imagine we could do well in like a cup maybe. I'm just going to need to, you know, top 3. I think we got to aim for next year, and a cup. But I said that this year, and obviously we've outperformed that. But with the World Cup and when you challenge in all 4, I don't expect much next year. We have to accept that there will be a drop-off. I just hope that drop-off isn't so aggressive that they start looking at the manager and things like that. Because even if you do win the league, and let's say you win the league in the FA Cup or just the league, whatever it is, everyone at the end of the season could be like, oh, unbelievable, Arteta's changed the club, finally get his flowers, Arsenal are really good, blah, blah, blah. If you start next season poorly, that all gets forgotten very quickly, and you do worry that they kind of move on and make a knee-jerk reaction. But we got to accept it's going to be a tough season next year with all the players going for a quad. The year in which there's a World Cup is even more insult to injury of just fatigue. But either way, those are the players. So Eze misses the final. Saka and Rice played the final, but then we already knew they were going to be late to the party. Timber was pulled as well from... He hadn't played for Arsenal, but they let Holland know that he wasn't in a position to play, which is absolutely fine. So he didn't go. Odegaard wasn't in the squad, even though we thought he could be. So for those keeping it track at home, that is an Eze injury, a Timber injury, and an Odegaard injury not going away. And Saka and Rice are late to the party, giving a little rest, which is very helpful. So then the final ends in almost like maybe an hour and a half after the game. Saliba is pulled from the French squad for precautionary measures, and I think we all kind of perk our ears at maybe he was absolutely fine at the end of the game. Maybe it is tough because we don't know. Muscle injuries are different. Maybe he gets back there and goes feeling something here. Maybe it is nothing sinister as far as pulling people, and I don't think there's something sinister about pulling players, but you wonder that maybe it's something that we haven't seen, but we feel pretty confident this is a bit of, as they say, Dark Arts FC. So you go, okay, well, I'm glad they're starting to do this kind of thing because we already feel good about Rice and Saka kind of having a week off. Shame about the injuries, but the Timber and Odegaard, I don't know about everyone else, but it feels like they are nearly fit. And they just didn't want them to go, so they didn't want them part of the squad. That's the vibe I'm getting, that maybe after all this, Timber and Odegaard will be available, and Saliba is the same, but the Saliba one, he still played the final, and then we pulled him. And then I think it was a day later, Gabriel gets pulled from the Brazil squad, which I absolutely love. He's the player that I do not want. We've already lost him once this year to a silly friendly for a period of time. We do not need to deal with that again. So happy to see that. So then, a bit of time passes, the internationals start, and then you watch that England game. Early on, I think a player gets stretchered off with a Madueke situation, and then Madueke kind of gets a head knock, but stays down. But moments before, he had that kind of shot blocked, and a guy landed on his knee, and I was thinking, it's probably a concussion. That's a shame, or like concussion sub, maybe not a concussion, but a head injury. And I thought he should be okay. It wasn't until afterwards where he walks through the press area that he's got a knee brace on, and you're thinking, oh my god, that has to be precaution or MCL sprain or something. You get grades 1, 2, and 3. Some are 2 weeks, some are 4 weeks, some are 6 weeks. It's dependent. He's had the knee surgery this year already, but that was on the other knee. But you think, if that's precaution, but knee brace is heavy enough, and he came off. Obviously, is another one that you feel it can't be like, he's playing against Southampton. He's never playing against Southampton or Sporting. Could he be available for Bournemouth, maybe on the bench? Maybe, because that would be a grade 1. But it depends what level we're looking at here, I think. But that is, immediately I saw that, I said, typical. Of course Madueke's hurt. He's in form. He's doing well. It's someone that helps Saka a lot. Saka's already on his last legs to a point where they've asked him and Rice to come in late. And then he goes down, you think, surely not. And in that game, I mean, Foden nearly had a really bad injury from that tackle. Agate got double booked, but not sent off. It was just, I think a lot of people watched that game as far as managers and even the internationals, and I think they went, yeah, we can't take any more risks with some of these players. It's too crucial to, putting that friendly there. Let's say, and you look over across the board, Rafinha, 6 weeks out, he's going to miss the quarters and potentially the semis of the Champions League and the run-in for Barcelona for the majority. 6 weeks is a long time. I can't remember his name, but he's the top goal scorer in Liga, Argentine forward, young guy. ACL tear out until next year. There was another ACL tear, I can't remember who it was. There's Wirtz went off injured, I believe. Madueke, and then fast forward a little bit longer, and then last night you have Hincapi gets injured, and it doesn't look a good one for Colombia. He's chasing back on a kind of a counter attack, and he kind of grabs at his leg and asks immediately to be changed. Is it cramp? Is he just, I don't know, but it does very much look like that's going to be a muscle injury, and that's going to be a minimum of 4 or 5 weeks. And if you remember, he had a muscle injury not too long ago where he kind of walked off early on in an Arsenal game, and we didn't see him for about a month. I can't imagine he's not out now for a month. So, again, if you're keeping score at home, there's 2 actual injuries we've seen. Zubimendi last night got sent back from Spain as a precaution. We don't know what that means. Was it an injury in training? Is it just Arsenal actively reaching out and saying, nope, you're not playing them? And again, this isn't just an Arsenal thing. Roy Keane even said, he was like, this has been happening for years. Like, Ferguson made a career out of this. Like, when the run-in came, Man United players went all down injured in the last 5 minutes of the game before and never went. This is not a new thing. City are doing it. They're pulling Stones. Newcastle are doing it. They're pulling Ramsdale. Obviously, they've spoken to Tuchel and said, well, Trafford played that whole game. Who's playing the next one? He might have said Pickford or Henderson or whoever it is. And they've said, we don't need Ramsdale getting injured right now. So they've pulled him. Stones have been pulled. There's loads. I think it was 11 players left the camp, England camp, and including Rice and Saka for further assessment, it says. And again, there's a lot of verbiage that we don't know if there's like any meaning to it or whether it's just corporate speak for we need to not make it sound like managers ask for them back. They can't say that. So do they just say further assessment is like one of those kind of kind regards, I mean? Like one of those, yeah, they're cool, they're done, that kind of thing. We don't know yet. But across the board there, yeah, Zubimendi came back. Martinelli's still out there, and he actually had a decent game for Brazil. Ben White is still with the England camp, which is interesting. Someone we do need to talk about, actually, because obviously he got booed coming on. I can't believe England fans are so dense to not understand the deal there. We obviously don't, the media actually know what happened. I've heard rumblings through people that could know, and I don't think I'm someone who can break news, but I know it's a comment made by Steve Holland about his family and maybe allegedly I think his nan died, is it, Ben White, around the World Cup, and there was a comment to do with not turning you back on your the England or whatever, and I think he just went nope. And I don't know obviously for fact, but I know a lot of people who are more in the know, and I've heard the kind of full story. I don't think I'm supposed to be the one to talk about that, but I think eventually Ben White might talk about it, but he's the kind of guy that might go, I don't really care. It's not for you to know. But either way, his issues with that guy, and as a not stubborn, but maybe as a moral point, he said he would never work with that team, as in Southgate and Steve Holland, because of that comment. And then the minute they left, he said, I'm open to international. He spoke to Tuchel. Tuchel picked him. I don't see an issue with it because it's not him turning his back on his country. It's not all that. There's more to it, and some things are bigger than football, and I think that's what this was. But either way, they booed, then they cheered when he scored, and it's hilarious that he scored. Ben White does not score goals, and except for that brace he scored against Chelsea, it was unbelievable, but it's just hilarious that he did score. And then he also cost a goal. And that game, I don't think I've ever seen a messier, weirder game of football. Officials were awful. The football was not great. The tackles were bad. It was everything you don't want in an international. I genuinely think that game might be the game that started making all the teams start pulling their players. I think they saw it once and went, nah, that we can't be doing this. And I do think that is true. And across that board now, when you look, our squad, Havertz had a bit of a nightmare game. The German press really ripped into him. The manager thought he actually played quite well. Martinelli, Brazil really enjoyed him. The Brazilians love him, which is really interesting. And I don't dislike him, but it's just funny the difference in kind of thoughts and the way in which these players play. And we will talk about Gyökeres shortly. But Saka and Rice are now back. Zubimendi is now back. Gabriel and Saliba never left. Timber and Odegaard never left. Eza is still recovering. I think there was some good news last night. It looked like it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks is what they were originally saying. And if you imagine, that was midweek before the Carabao Cup. So midweek since the Carabao Cup is as this Wednesday. That's 2 weeks ago. So by next Wednesday, the week after, where we play Sporting, that'll be 3 weeks. So the week after that is 3 days before City. That is 4 weeks. He could be available for City. That is at the best case scenario. But there was some very good news that there's a chance that he might actually be available for Bournemouth. But hey, we'll touch wood and just hope that that is true, what they're talking about. But he was actually injured. Hincapie's one, we do not know yet, but I'm interested. The Madueke one nerves me out. I think it's worse than what people are hoping, that it's like precautionary. I feel like they're gearing up to say he's having season-ending surgery. That's my feeling. I hope not. The only blessing in disguise of there is the natural fit to be Saka's understudy is Dalman. And I think we could do with someone like that to energise this crowd at the end of the season. You saw what he did. Kind of a maverick. And I know Madueke plays the same. And obviously Madueke at this point in his career is a better football player than Max Dalman. But there is an element of unknown about Max Dalman. You can see when you think of like Doué scoring for PSG in the Champions League final and things like that. Yamal doing what he does. There's an element of just that kind of young blood that is just no nerves, just confidence that could benefit us in this run-in and in the other cups, I think. And him getting more minutes because, for example, against Saints, he's going to have to play. Saka can't play Sporting and then 3 days later play Bournemouth, 3 days later play Sporting, 3 days later play City, and then a week later play whoever it is, Newcastle at home, it is not possible for Saka to play all those minutes. And the only other option is obviously Madueke is someone who it needs to be on the right, but they will play him at left at the push. Obviously, we have Trossard available, and Martinelli is still fit currently. He's still away with Brazil, so touch wood on that. But he could play right. But I think Dauman, I think he will trust him. I think he might have to. And I don't have any issues with that. And I think that could be the silver lining, that Dauman might get more minutes now. And we might actually see how good this guy really is. The rest in that midfield, Moreno out for the rest of the season. There's a chance that Spain are looking to include him in the squad because they think he could be available for the group stage. That feels like a long shot. It doesn't feel like he's very close. It was season-ending foot surgery for a niggling issue. So that's that. Rice and Saka. We'll move on to that kind of thought. I think the further assessment, blah, 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 I think they're fine. I think they needed a rest. He offered them the rest. I think they saw the way that game went. And I reckon a mixture of Arteta on the phone to Tuchel went, do you really need him? And he's gone, no. I can see other people. I need to see Bowen. I need to see Gordon more. I need to see Garner with Elliot Anderson and, all the, you know what I mean? Like, he saw a bit of Wharton. Maybe does he need any more Wharton? I think he saw that and said, no, I can live without. It's fine. And I don't think there's a serious issue. I think both will be available for Southampton if we need them. Again, it's interesting because we're coming back into the FA Cup game, and it's a game as big as it is in the quarterfinals away at Southampton. It is not our home to Liverpool, for example, where you expect all the big boys. There's going to be a mix, and I think there's an element with this injury kind of list piling that we will see more players than we expect. But I think Saka and Rice are available, personally. Zubimendi coming back, I think that again was, you've seen he played a lot of minutes. Do you need to keep him there, or can we bring him back and prep him for the start of the run-in? And I think it was that. I think it was, we see a lot of Zubimendi. He played some really nice fast moving forward passes. You can have him back. I think that is not precaution. I think it was just, we've seen enough. It's absolutely fine. Have him back. And also it means we're getting these guys back on the training field where Arteta can start prepping for Southampton now on this Monday with 80% of his team, as opposed to waiting till Thursday morning when they all come in knackered. And it gets to Friday when they actually train, and then they're playing on Saturday. Do you know what I mean? It's so quick. So I think that is what that is. As far as the midfield, I think Odegaard might be available. I think Eze isn't. I think he's definitely injured. And Moreno's definitely injured. But I think Zubimendi, Rice, Norgard, Lewis Skelly, you could put in that little crew. Havertz, Odegaard. Yeah, I think they're all available. I think it's just Eze in the midfield that is going to be a problem. As far as the back line, Saliba and Gabriel, I truly believe, are absolutely fine. Mosquera is absolutely fine. There is a couple outstanding. Raya is still there, but he's not playing, I don't think. But either way, he is still there, so that is a slight issue. But goalkeeper's a slightly different position to the outfielders. Ben White's still there. Timber's at home. And I think he might be available, actually, going into this next level. I don't know, maybe Saints, but maybe the games after. Hincapi, I think that could be long. I think, I think that we might not see him until well after the City game, which is such a shame. So that's kind of like across the board. The two that I want to talk about a little bit are Calafiori and Gyökeres. Calafiori, the Italians were they went through the other night, and Wales unfortunately didn't. They went out in penalties to Bosnia. But Italy and the press and their fans, they were kind of saying like Calafiori almost might be our best attacker, even though he's playing left back, because the way he drives it forward. And I think he's such an important player for Arsenal. And I like Hincapi, but I really wish Calafiori was playing more minutes if he can play the minutes. That's the problem with his injury record. And Italy saw how good that was. There is no way he's not playing pretty much 90 minutes on tomorrow, against Bosnia, because they need to get to the World Cup. So it's not a situation where they could pull that player. He is desperate. They desperately need him, and they desperately need to win. The other one is Gyökeres, who scored a really good hat-trick for Sweden. And people talking about, why is this such a different player that we're seeing? It's not. It's absolutely not. It's the same exact player. We just do not trust the releasing him in pockets. That guy wants the ball to his feet. He wants to be side on with the defender, and he wants to run with him, and he wants to shoot. We are so risk averse. When they see that, they go to the wing and go, no, you go in the middle, we'll get the ball back to you again, but in a better spot. He's going, no, play it to me now. And we've seen it this season where we've given it to him early and we've given it to that, and he scores. He's a very good finisher. He's got 12 goals in the league out of 17 shots on target. The conversion rate is unbelievable. He's a very good finisher. He's a natural finisher, and he single-handedly kind of dragged Sweden through that Ukraine game and won them. He got a hat-trick, obviously 3-1, and he's their main man right now. He is going to play 90 minutes on Tuesday, tomorrow. Those two outstanding would be devastating losses if Gyökeres or Calafiori went down hurt, especially Calafiori with this Hincapié injury. And I'm sure if they had that tied up, I'm sure Arteta would be on the phone to Italy to say, could we have this guy back because we are short on left backs. And Lewis Skelly's right there, but he might be needed in midfield in the amount of games we've got, but he is also there. Those two are really interesting because they are outstanding. Like, Martinelli's still out there, White's still out there, Reyes still out there. I'm not so much worried about them, touch wood, that nothing happens, because there is a chance Timber's injured, so we do need White, and there's a chance that not so much Raya, again, touch wood, because we need that guy. We saw in the Carabao Cup final how important that guy is to us. But Martinelli's one. Again, we do have Trossard, and but with the lack of Madueke really does kind of bring that winger crew down to, they're going to have to play a lot of minutes, Trossard, Martinelli and Saka. And that is not what you want, because when you buy £65 million player like Madueke, that is to add to a crew of, Saka was free, Martinelli was 6 million, Trossard was, I don't know, 20 million, was it? So going into this, without Madueke, we're looking at a front, well, not front four, but the four wingers we're going to have are Saka, Martinelli, Trossard and Dalman. It cost us 26 million to create that four. It looks a lot better than 26 million, but that is, and that's why you go and buy £65 million Madueke or £65 million Havertz or £55 million Gyökeres, and another 50 million on Jesus. They're the added spice to it. But once you start removing a couple of those 60 plus million ones, the crew starts looking a bit dense again, like last year, where you kind of go, all of a sudden you're playing Wineri, Zinchenko and Tierney as a front three, and, Moreno, and you're thinking, how have we got in this mess? So we have to be careful, because it is a lot of games, and people don't just get injured on international duty. Someone could get injured in Southampton, then Sporting, then Bournemouth, and then you get to the City game and go, we are going to play a front three of Dalman, Jesus and Martinelli, for example. We do not know. So the more players available, the better, as we know. The constant talk around Arsenal pulling players is so ridiculous, because this is a story longer than time in football. Alex Ferguson made a career genuinely of doing this. Klopp, Pep are so good at doing this, pulling players. And I think this one, we did pull some players. At the end of the day, no one can really talk about Timber and Odegaard. We weren't playing them. They haven't played. They've been injured. Of course they're not going. That's not a problem. Rice and Saka, that was an international decision. Nothing to do with Arsenal, and they were still there. We'll get to them being pulled. So really the only ones that I thought were a little sneaky were Saliba and Gabriel. And I don't blame the club for doing that, because they know what they've got in Saliba and Gabriel, France and Brazil. They do not need to see them. Particularly in Gabriel's case, they know how bad they felt after last time with the injury in a pointless friendly. I think that is absolutely fine, because I think everything else is warranted. People are saying, yeah, but they pulled Eza, Saka. No. We pulled Gabriel and we pulled Saliba. Once bad things started happening on this international games, I do believe we've pulled Zubimendi. I do believe we've pulled Saka, Rice, and who was the other one? Zubimendi, Saka, Rice. I don't know who else we pulled, but I feel those were pulled, but they were in conjunction with the internationals, because they actually have the deciding thought. They don't need to listen to clubs. They can say no. It's not a problem. We had a situation a couple of years ago where Saka actually went there and they said he's not fit enough to play. And he was playing for Arsenal. 2 weeks later, he tears his hamstring. So internationals are the deciding factor. They decide everything. Manager can suggest things. They can talk to them, I'm sure. They can make deals and say, please, And I think that's what's happening. Like, for example, with Zubimendi, Rice, Saka, I think they've literally said to them, well, have you seen enough? Do you need them? And I think they've just gone, yeah, we're fine. But all the clubs are doing, there's players going back to Newcastle, City, Liverpool. These players are coming back. And also this one particularly is only here because the qualifiers have to happen. We haven't asked for Calafiori back. We haven't asked for Gyökeres back, because we know how important they are needed. But the ones in non-important friendlies that are only being done because, why not? Because there's qualifiers happening, so we have to have a break in the season. We might as well do friendlies. Why not have it as like every English player that you don't expect to see at the World Cup, just so we can have a good look and go, do you know what? They've just snuck on there. Why not put Dowman in that group? In hindsight, like, do we need to see Gordon? Do we need to see Saka? Do we need to see Rashford? Does he not know he's already picking them? So I think it's a bit of both. I think this one particularly obviously Arsenal are heavily involved, so it's going to be talked about a lot. But I also think there's been a heavy influence of players coming back, especially after one game. Usually they stay in the camp because they want to get camaraderie. This time they've kind of gone, one game, you've seen it, can we have them? I think that's the first time I've seen that, but I don't think it's just Arsenal. It is across the board, but naturally Arsenal are involved, so it's a massive talking point. But I think it's a lot of nonsense because I think this has happened forever. And I'm just glad we got savvy to it. The amount of times I've said, why can't we do what Man United, City and Liverpool do and pull their players? Why do we always send them and get... Last year, literally every international, we lost a major player to a long injury. And I don't want that to happen again. But we've already... On this one where we've, quote unquote, pulled all our players, we've just lost Hincapi. we've lost Hincapi to a long-term injury. That's not ideal going into the run-in. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not ideal kind of... settings. We've just lost potentially Madueke for the rest of the season, a £65 million player to give Saka time off. Not the time. This is the time where you want all your players fit, not where they're not fit. So we've lost 2 players in 2 games. So us, quote unquote, pulling all our players, the right thing to do in my opinion. I just need to get through tomorrow. I'd love to see Gyökeres come back fit. And Calafiori is going to be so important to the end of the season. I think those 2 players particularly are going to be very important. And it's unfortunate that they are needed for their countries, and rightly so, because it's important to get to the World Cup for these countries. If we're keeping tabs, and again, I'm not doing this podcast tomorrow, where we'll find out maybe Wednesday. Joe and I will kind of brush on it. We'll brush on it if there is any updates as far as players that came back that we thought weren't fit, who are fit, or ones that we thought are actually fine and actually aren't. If anything like that comes out in the next 2 days, we'll definitely talk about that with Joe on Wednesday. But if you actually look at it and we're keeping up at home, who do I think is available for the start of this huge run-in that starts with Southampton away at the weekend? I think Raya and Kepa are available. If we were going 2 in every position, kind of what we know as the squad. I think Hincapi is not available. Calafiori, question mark, because he hasn't finished. I think Saliba is available. I think Gabriel is available. I think Mosquera is available. I think Timber, question mark, might be available. And I think Ben White might be available because we don't know if he's going to play 60, 70 minutes and pick up a muscle injury. We do not know. As for the midfield, I think Zubimendi is fine. I think Rice is fine. I think Lewis Skelly is fine. I think Norgard is fine. Moreno is out for the season. We know that. I think Ezra is out for another 3 or 4 weeks. Maybe 3 weeks from now. Maybe 2 weeks from now. I think he'll be back. I think Odegaard might be fit. And I think Havertz is fit. But again, he is still there. So he has to play another game. He played a lot of minutes the other day. Maybe he won't play the minutes that would cause an injury. But either way, there's still fatigue happening because they're having to travel and all this kind of stuff. But again, that happens. That's football. Trossard, I think, is fit. Martinelli is a question mark because he still isn't back, but hopefully, touch wood, fit. Gyökeres, again, question mark, but hopefully come back fit. Jesus is fit. Saka, I think, is fine. Dowman is fine. Madueke, I think, is out for the season. So when you look at it, that injury list, when you go to Google when we come back, and this is if the rest of the players that are still out there come back absolutely fine, I think our injury list realistically is Moreno, Madueke, Hincapi, and I think Timber or Odegaard, one of them isn't quite fit, and Ezra. So when you look at that, it's not the worst list. It's not the best. I think if Timber and Odegaard are fit and ready to go, and it is just Moreno, Ezra, Hincapi, and Madueke, I think we can get around that. But you do look at that and go, and Hincapi was a loan, but it's a £60 million fee in the summer, which we will be paying. Ezra 60 million, Madueke 65. That's £185 million players. If you add Moreno 35 million, that's £200 million worth of players that have been bought in the last 18 months, who you buy for this exact moment of the season to fight on all fronts to try and get something over the line, and they aren't available. And albeit it's only Madueke and Hincapi that was due to internationals. Ezra and Moreno was an Arsenal issue. But it is annoying when you have to deal with this. But again, every team that's ever won the league has had to do a March international. Do you know what I mean? Like, people have to work their way around it. There's a lot of injuries across the board. We need to find a way. And I think Madueke and Moreno won't play again. Personally, we don't have that confirmation as far as Madueke. But can Calafiori and Lewis Skelly just get us through the next 4 or 5 games before Hincapie does reappear? They should be able to. They're very good players. I would have trusted Lewis Skelly as our left back for the season. Same with Calafiori. We didn't need Hincapie, in my opinion. He's been unbelievable, but I don't think we needed him. Moreno, we can live with that. We've proven that. Madueke is a tough one, but I do think, like I said earlier, there's a silver lining with Dauman. I just really would love to see Odegaard. And we're talking about Gyökeres and how they play. I really do kind of want to see Odegaard, Saka, Ben White and or Timber, but Ben White particularly, and Gyökeres all in that same team a few times. I really want to see kind of... We saw Odegaard assist Gyökeres recently, and I think it's the one thing we've missed is Odegaard coming to get the ball, moving that ball around, kind of, needing that bread going side to side, and actually sliding that pass down. I know there's a couple of screenshots out there where Odegaard's picked the ball up in the midfield, particularly against Brentford, I think it was, away, where he had like a 15-yard pass straight line where Gyökeres was just one-on-one with a guy and he didn't play it. He went out wide, and those things are frustrating. But I think Odegaard is the one who's going to get in a position to be able to do that pass. I don't think anyone else in the team is going to get into the pockets well enough to be able to find that space to do that. It's just whether he's been able to unlock it in his head of, I need to stop being so risk averse. We've got a forward that does want to run behind. We don't have a forward that is looking for it to feet and coming towards me, which he's so used to with Moreno, Havertz, Jesus. They all want to kind of run towards him. He can do like wall passes and go out wide. So his best option's always been to go out wide, give it to Saka, let the forwards get into the box. Whereas now he's got a guy who's going, no, I want to run. I want to run with this guy. I want to run at this guy. And they haven't played enough together to get used to it. But we see it with Gyökeres in Sweden. That he loves that. At Sporting, he loves it. We've seen it with Odegaard, with Haaland at Norway. He loves that pass. He just needs to play the reps to be like, oh, okay, no, I get it. I can actually do it. I don't have to do it every time, but I can do it. So I actually think there is an element. There's some silver linings under this that some injuries are going to cause us to play a certain group of players that I think there could be some real good results from it. That is me thinking very positively. There's so much up in the air. There's so much to talk about, but there's so little to talk about, so it's an interesting podcast. But that's my kind of thoughts on it. I must admit, I was talking to Kyle at work, who's a listener of the show, and every time we talk, we both get nervous because you do, and Joe and I are going to look forward on Wednesday a lot more than this, but just kind of a brief one, is once you start talking about it and you think, okay, we've got Bournemouth at home, they've got Chelsea away, and we all kind of go, that could be one of those games where they drop points and we win. But you do look at Bournemouth and they haven't lost in 120 years coming off an international break. They are the longest undefeated streak in the league currently with 13 games in a row or 12 games in a row. Not an easy game, 12:30 in 10 days' time. But it's one that you would expect in a run-in at a team at the top of the league should win. Because as much as they've been undefeated for 12 games, it's a lot of draws. It's not a lot of wins. They're a team that don't create as many chances as they should. At home, you'd think we'd have enough, but you saw the way we were against Everton. Chelsea are so inconsistent, you don't know what City could win 6-0. They could also lose 2-0. They're an odd team. So we do look at that and you start thinking about that game and you go, do you know what? Yeah, that could be the day. Because I think the next 2 Premier League games are the ones that will dictate the way the season's going to end. Because I think if they drop points there and we beat Bournemouth, we go into that Etihad game, that'll be 11 points clear, I would have thought, with the game in hand. If you draw that, you get to now 5 games left with 11 points. Let's say they win their game in hand. There'll be 8 points clear, and we've both got 8 games left. 5 games left, I should say. Sorry, we had a little issue with the mic there. So when you think about that, it'd be 8 points, but 5 games left. They would need us to lose 3 of the last 5, and they would need to win out. And that feels so doable, and it feels very... Again, anything can happen in football. We've seen people throw away crazy leads and lose 3 games in a trot because they just in panic. And this team has proved we can get panicky. The crowd can get panicky. There's a lot can happen. Like that Everton game, we got it over the line, but I mean, that was a game that we kind of accepted was probably a draw at about 86 minutes. We've got a lot more of that to come. We've got Newcastle at home, Fulham at home, Bournemouth at home. These are all games that I could see being 0-0 at 70 minutes and us getting freaked. and they could all be draws. I can see Burnley away, and Burnley at home. I can see that being a win. Palace away, West Ham away. So when you do look at it, you think this season's so competitive that there's no game you look at and go, like Burnley at home, I feel confident with. But you saw what we did with Wolves at home. We needed a 94th minute own goal to rescue that. Leeds have been our team this year, that we definitely have their number. But there's no real easy games, and it's hard to see it for City, because when you see City, even though they're the ones that are dropping more points than us currently, the way they played against us, it almost felt like a turning point. And I've been saying all season, there's going to be a point, whether it's 1 game to go, 10 games to go, they're going to hit a point in this season where they just do not draw or lose. They're going to keep winning. But the longer it goes before they kind of get into that mode, obviously the better. But they've done it in the past where they've won the last 14 Premier League games in a row. This is how they win leagues every year. They kind of start slow, get into position, sit behind someone, and then go, yeah, we're going to win 12 in a row. And no one can compete with that. And if they decide they're going to win the next 8, including the one against us, I don't think we can win the league. And that is a possibility. So when you start talking like this, you get very nervous. And then you start thinking, well, what if we did drop points to Bournemouth and they beat Chelsea, and then we go to the Etihad? You know what I mean? Like, this is... Then all of a sudden... they're 7 points behind us. And then they beat us. They're 4 points. They've got a game in hand. They win that. They're 1 point. Then you have to win the last 5 games. And again, that is very possible still. So, which is a lovely thought, because you could drop points to Bournemouth. You could lose to City. And we could still be in a position where we're 1 point clear and we just got to win against Bournemouth, Newcastle, Fulham, West Ham and Palace. And that is very doable, And they also still got to go to Everton in that time, and a couple other awkward ones. Villa, So there's no guarantees they would win out, but it just feels like there's going to be a point where they're going to win out. And that's why I think those next 2 games are so important, because I think if we can beat Bournemouth, I think that will tell a lot, and it means we'll go into that confidence into the City game. And obviously sandwich amongst all this is Southampton, which we're going to talk about on Wednesday, and Sporting. So the games are coming very quick and fast. So this is a great time to subscribe to the Patreon, because there's going to be podcasts constantly. As for what you've got lined up here on iTunes and Spotify, give us a 5-star review. And also on Patreon is, we've got this episode right now that's dropping on iTunes and Spotify, and on Patreon it'll be ad-free. On Wednesday, Joe and I will be doing a kind of a look forward to the rest of the season, similar to what I just did, but I summarized it. We're going to deep dive into what could happen, what we need to do, and also any new injuries or any new news that we've got by then. That'll be on iTunes and Spotify, as well as ad-free on the Patreon. Then at the end of the week, I'm going to do a preview of the Southampton game for the weekend. And then right at the end of the weekend, there'll probably be either any kind of catch-up, or it'll be the Monday episode on iTunes and Spotify, as well as ad-free on the Patreon. Because we'll be getting ready. We're talking about the Southampton game next Monday. We'll be getting geared up for the Champions League revival. And then on the Patreon on Tuesday, there'll be a Patreon preview of the Sporting game. And then Wednesday, Joe and I will be in there talking about the Sporting game. Then there'll be a build-up to the Bournemouth game on Patreon. So there's going to be constant podcasts through now. So it's a great time to subscribe. But if not, iTunes, Spotify, 2 times a week. I hope you're enjoying it. This is Gunners R Us, where we are positively Arsenal. And I'll be back on Wednesday with Joe. Bye-bye.